All right. So we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for joining. My name is Sarah Pierce, and I am the Housing and Energy Affordability Program Coordinator at the Metropolitan Housing Coalition. I oversee a program called EveryHome that seeks to include affordable utilities in the affordable housing conversation. MHC is a coalition of more than 300 individuals and organizational members who are working towards fair and affordable housing here in Louisville. And then I also have a guest speaker with me today to talk about disconnections. That is Kara Cooper, and I will let her introduce herself and her organization.
Hey y'all, happy to be here with you. My name's Kara. I use she, her pronouns. I live in Lexington, and I coordinate a statewide network of organizations called Kentuckians For Energy Democracy. And we work at the intersection of energy affordability, utility accountability, and the transition to an affordable, equitable, clean, and safe energy future. We've been working on disconnections for the past several years and excited to talk about what's going on this year with you all.
Great. So I'll go ahead and get us started. So disconnections has been a very large topic, especially with all of the cold weather outside that we have been experiencing this weekend, which I hope you all are staying warm. But energy insecurity is a very real problem here in Louisville. About 1 in 3 households across Kentucky face energy insecurity, which means that they don't have reliable access to energy at any given time. In Louisville, that's about 18% or 57,000 households. Louisville residents face very high energy burdens. And what I mean by energy burdens is that a resident is paying more than 6% of their monthly income on energy alone. So if they are paying more than 6%, that is considered an energy burdened household. If you look at this map here, a lot of this is taken from our housing and utility affordability report that just came out at the end of September, which Elena or Tony, if you want to put a link to that in the chat. This shows where all of those households that have a high energy burden are located. And you can see that it's really concentrated to the northwest or northwest kind of central core of Louisville. That's where we see our highest rates of insecurity, with some people experiencing more than 10% of their monthly income spent on energy alone. The average for those who are experiencing these burdens is about 8%, but some people face up to 16, which is very high. So disconnections is something that when people face that, there are a lot of different factors that can affect them. It can affect them physically, it can affect them mentally, as well as economically and their security within their home. So utility unaffordability is affecting a large percent of the population, but it is targeting specifically households that are more vulnerable, such as households with children, households with elderly, Black and Hispanic households. They are going to have the highest rates of energy insecurity. And so when people have these high bills, it's going to affect the way that they can operate within their monthly household budget. So does that mean that they are going to be able to afford groceries, or am I going to keep the lights on or keep the heat on? Am I going to fill my medication? So it's creating this problem where they have to pick and choose what they can spend their allotted monthly income on. So a lot of the times people are going to prioritize energy because they, in everyday life, people need energy, whether it's through work, computer, heating, cooling. If they have medical devices that need energy, people will find a way to pay for their energy bill. And of course, when people cannot afford their bill, they are shut off by the energy company. And this is especially dangerous for our most vulnerable populations. And we'll get into the health effects of that in a moment. But people who have health conditions, the elderly, the young, people who rely on electronic devices and refrigerated medications. It also keeps people in a system of poverty. So if somebody is, you know, working as much as they can to afford their energy bill, but rates keep increasing, they won't be able to afford it. And so they may have to skip out, like I said, on purchasing their medications, which may make them sick. And if they are sick, they're going to miss work, and thus they will be missing out on more money coming in monthly that they can use within their household budget. This puts a lot of physical stress, not from, like heat stroke, carbon monoxide poisoning, hypothermia, all of those physical effects, but the mental ones too, of trying to figure out how they are going to pay for all of these basic necessities within the next month or so. This is what we call a heat, eat, or treat dilemma. And about, I believe, 17% of the population in Louisville has admitted to experiencing this. Whether they had to pick between, am I going to buy my groceries or buy my medication? It can also cause a lot of household issues as well. If you are renting and you are disconnected, you could be subject to eviction. And that could, in turn, make somebody homeless for a while, or when they are looking for an additional, the next place where they're living, if they have an eviction on their file, that could prevent them from getting future housing. It also can cause issues if they have young children in the house. CPS could get involved if there is a disconnection on their record. So the health risks associated with this, like I said, there are a lot of instances where people can get hypothermia, such as, if energy were to go out in this extreme cold snap that we're having right now, in the summer when heat is extremely high. Extreme heat is the number one cause of those weather-related deaths. So there are a lot of people who will try different methods of heating or cooling their home, which can be extremely dangerous and can not only lead to property damage, but it could also lead to death if there was a fire to break out or not enough ventilation. And heat, of course, is not experienced the same by different people. According to the EPA, the most severe harms from climate change fall disproportionately on underserved communities who are least able to prepare for heat waves, poor quality flooding, and other important factors, which, of course, MHC, we do a State of Metropolitan Housing Report every year, and we have more information about the effect of climate change on housing from our 2023 report, which we can link that as well. Oh, if it'll go forward. There we go. And then impact on children. So households with children are 3 times more likely to be disconnected. That is because there are a lot of additional factors that are going into a monthly budget. And because those budgets are strained and they have, childcare and medications and soccer practice dues and all of that compounding, it makes it more likely that there is going to be less money in the monthly budget to be able to pay for electricity. They are also more vulnerable to extreme temperatures. Young children can feel heat and cold a lot more harshly than adults do, and it's harder for them to regulate their body temperatures. It can also add increased stress and health issues, especially for older children who are trying to help younger children within the home. And it can cause a lot of stress if there are there's an electricity to run your washing machine and have clean clothes for school, or be able to do your homework, which a lot of it now is online. So it creates an issue and can make children fall behind in school as well. But a lack of access to reliable utilities can also, like I said, result in a visit from Child Protective Services, which a lot of the times when we are asking people for their stories about how they were disconnected, many don't want to state why because they might have CPS get involved. And then I will pass it to Kara.
Thanks, Sarah. So wanted to just start by grounding us a little bit in some of the numbers, some of the data we have around disconnections in Kentucky. So LG&E and KU disconnected almost 10,000 households during the month of January 2025, when we know the average temperature was under 30 degrees. And people were disconnected for as little as $75. Kentucky Power actually has the lowest rate of disconnections during extreme weather, 2 in every 1,000 households per month. And LG&E KU has the highest, which is 2 in every 100 households per month. And one reason we're seeing Kentucky Power's rate of disconnections being lowered is that they actually have disconnection protections for extreme weather on the books, a policy on the books with the Public Service Commission. The average number of disconnections across the state from December 2024 to February 2025 was 16,176. Nearly 128,000 Kentucky households are living below the federal poverty line and face an average energy burden of 32%. And the average Kentucky worker making minimum wage would have to work 19 and a half hours to afford one typical energy bill. So when we're working on disconnections, we're often hear from utility companies that they don't need a statewide policy around disconnection protections during extreme weather because they already have policies, internal policies, where they don't do this. But the data shows that people are being disconnected when it's cold outside. They are being disconnected when it's hot outside, and that there are a lot of Kentuckians who are impacted by this issue. So what do we need, right? This is obviously a huge problem. And I think this is a really great time for us to be having this conversation as well, because I know, like many of you, last week, I was preparing for what would it be like if I lost my power in the extreme cold, right? And so while you have maybe never had this issue come up because you couldn't afford to pay, everyone has had to think about how will I keep myself warm? How will I keep my children warm, if the power goes out during a winter storm? Right. And what we ultimately need is that no one should be disconnected for non-payment. Um, you can't live in this society without power at your home. It's not safe. It's about keeping families together. It's about being able to do your job when you're working remotely. It's about being able to wash your clothes, keep your food refrigerated. Um, and we know that that is not going to be possible in the state of Kentucky in the near term, right? That we will have a ban on disconnections for non-payment. So in the meantime, what can we get? And what we'd like to see is there being a minimum past due amount before disconnection. So $75 is, I think not enough, of a past due amount for a disconnection to happen. We want to see that there are no disconnections happening when the weather is too hot or too cold, when it's just dangerous to disconnect folks. We want to see more and easier access to hardship reconnections all year round and through more agencies. Something I've heard from folks when talking to people about their disconnection stories is that, they try to go to community action to get help through LIHEAP funding, the federal program to help people with their bills. And there's long lines, or they're open during business hours when they're at work and they can't get there. You have to go in person. There's a lot of hurdles, and there just aren't enough agencies for people to be able to access this in a timely fashion. And then we want to see that there's mandatory reporting from our utilities of where disconnections are happening, how often they're happening, and the amount past due at the time of disconnection. Right now, it's really difficult to access data around utility disconnections. You actually have to request that data from the Public Service Commission. It's gathered on a monthly basis, so it makes it really hard for us to know, on which days were people actually disconnected. Yeah, so this is a good start on what we really need. We have been, Kentuckians for Energy Democracy and allies all across the state have been working on disconnection legislation for the past, this is the third year that we've been working on trying to get legislation passed at the state level. There are three new bills of importance this year to be paying attention to. The first bill is Senate Bill 62, which prevents a tenant from being evicted during extreme weather as determined by the National Weather Service. So helping to keep people in their homes. The second is Senate Bill 88. This would require utilities to submit their disconnection plans to the PSC and to have those plans be available on both the PSC and utility websites. It would also prohibit electric and gas disconnections during extreme weather as determined by the National Weather Service. And so right now, utilities say they have policies, but when we've gone to do the research and figure out what individual utility policies exist, oftentimes you can't find it on the website, or it's very hard to find, and they differ, from utility to utility. And then the third bill is House Bill 377. And this bill would protect customers from electric or gas shutoffs during extreme weather, which is defined as below 32 degrees or above 95, on holidays or when a resident has documentation from a doctor or community-based organization. It would limit disconnections to weekday business hours and require reconnection after partial payment with a payment plan. It would waive all shutoff and reconnection fees and mandate clear, highly visible final shutoff notices. Again, stories that I've heard from folks who've had their utilities shut off is that they left in the morning to go to work and take the kids to school. They came home in the afternoon and the power had been off for several hours, and they did not know that the utility was coming to shut them off that day. And so, there are there's a lot of room for improvement, and House Bill 377 would be the most extensive um, bill that we have on the books for this year. I see a question from Elisa in the comments. I think I have a slide about this later on, but there are 42 states in the country that already have weather-related disconnection policies, statewide policies on the books. And so Kentucky is one of only 8 states that does not have this type of protection. Wanted to speak a little bit about some of our more recent organizing efforts. So in the later part of last year, over 45 organizations came together, calling ourselves the Leave the Heat On Collective, pushing for Governor Beshear to use his power to put in place a moratorium on utility disconnections during the government shutdown. And so we were pushing on the governor to do this during the government shutdown because people's safety nets were on hold or in question. It was uncertain about LIHEAP being refunded in this year. And at the time, Governor Beshear did not act during the government shutdown. We then called on him after the government shutdown to do it anyway, because any day that the temperature is like it is today is an emergency situation when it comes to utility disconnections. And the governor responded publicly in his State of the Commonwealth address on January 7th, saying that that no one should freeze to death in their homes or die of heat stroke because they can't afford their utility bills. And in his proposed budget for this year, they're allocating $75 million in utility bill payment assistance. Which is great. And we obviously need more bill pay assistance for folks. And ultimately, what we need is safety for folks, and peace of mind that you cannot be disconnected when the weather is bad. And so we still need, these disconnection protections on the books. So like I said, 48 states already have weather-related utility disconnection protections. Kentucky isn't one of them. And so seems like it would be common sense that we would just have this, right? And this is year three that that there's been a bill in the legislature asking for this to happen. Seems like a no-brainer, right? Um, so what's the holdup? Like I mentioned before, utility companies say they don't disconnect service when the weather is bad. They say we don't need this statewide policy. Because we're already not doing it. But their own data shows that they do disconnect. And when, you know, when you have multiple utility providers in one area, it's hard to figure out like if there's a bunch of different policies on the books, it's hard to communicate with folks about what their policies are. It's hard to know, and they can change those policies at any time. Um, and then legislators have expressed concern as well about lost revenue for utility companies. And so I think it's important to be really clear that what we're asking for is not bill forgiveness. Um, in those 48 other states, what happens is, you know, in December through March, nobody is disconnected. They accrue a bill. People pay what they can during that time so they don't get further and further behind. And then, when it come April, they can be disconnected if they're not caught up. Um, which ultimately we don't want to see anybody disconnected, but being disconnected in April versus being disconnected in February is a big difference in terms of health and safety. The bottom line is that our utilities are unaffordable. The rates keep going up, and when people fall behind, utility shutoffs leave them without gas or electricity during dangerous conditions. Disconnection protection is the first step, and truly affordable utilities is the ultimate goal. And so, a lot of what Kentuckians for Energy Democracy also works on is engaging at the Public Service Commission level, and driving in public comments around utility rate cases and plans that utilities are making for the future to ensure that our utilities are actually affordable for people, that they're reliable and they're resilient. And in the meantime, we need disconnection protections. So what can you do? What can you do to help? You could join the Leave the Heat On Collective if you're here representing an organization. You can help us connect with people who faced disconnections, who'd be willing to share their stories, either directly with legislators or publicly. What we've heard from legislators is that they would like to move this bill, and they need to hear from people that it's actually happened to. So if you work with a direct service organization, or you know people who've had their utilities shut off in the cold and in the heat, please reach out to us. We can figure out a way to discreetly share those stories with legislators, um, and make sure that the people who need to hear about this are hearing about it. And then you can also contact your legislator. You can use that QR code on the screen to send an email to your legislators right now to support disconnection protections this legislative session.
Thank you so much, Kara. This is a lot of really great information, and it's really important to check up on, what our utilities and what the legislative session is doing currently. I did want to open it up for Q&A. So if you have a question, you're welcome to put it in the chat or come off mute, and we'd be happy to answer.
I'll also say there are a lot of folks from the collective on this call and a lot of really knowledgeable people who've been involved in this. And so if Sarah and I miss something that you think is important, please also hop in and make sure you share that as well.
And something I'll also say is that if you were ever interested in the work that Kentuckians for Energy Democracy or Metropolitan Housing Coalition is doing, you can always check out our websites. It has especially the EveryHome website and the K4ED website. It has a lot of really great information about current cases in front of the Public Service Commission, such as LG&E's IRP, which is their Integrated Resource Plan, their Certificate for Public Need and Necessity, which is kind of like a building permit or able the ability to change rates. And then the current LG&E rate case, as well as across Kentucky, all of the other utility companies such as Kentucky Power, Eastern Kentucky Power, things like that. It looks like we have a question in the chat. What are some great resources for clients who have been disconnected, but no funding is left for Brown bill support? Kara, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'm grabbing our bill pay assistance and warming centers document right now to share with folks. We've been working on crowdsourcing a list of various resources to be able to share with folks. Uh, you can contact United Way of Kentucky to find out if they have some bill pay assistance. Sometimes Salvation Army may be able to help folks. Folks like the Homeless and Housing Coalition of Kentucky may be able to help. There are local churches. Association for Community Ministries is another one that comes to mind for folks to reach out to. And here's our document. And if folks know about other resources that are not listed in this document, please let us know because like I said, we're crowdsourcing this list. So we'd love to make sure that it has the most up-to-date information for folks. And we also have a list of some of the warming centers that you can find. I know Sarah added the Louisville ones on here, and most of y'all are Louisville folks. So also just making sure people know that there's a warm place they can go if their power is disconnected. Elisa, I saw you come off of mute. You got a question?
I just
Gary?
wondered, does LGNEKU, I've read through various sources that they're some of the worst offenders in terms of disconnections in the country. Do they have any policy filed at the PSC? And I'm wondering if they don't have a policy, why they don't, and if we could ask Liz Pratt, their spokesperson, for a comment on that at some point.
Yeah, thanks for that, Elisa. I think that John Hayden on this call is from LGNKU, and so maybe John can speak to what their policy is. I know when we were gathering policies from utilities around the state, we could not find a policy on the website from LGNKU. So I don't know if John, you have something you want to share in terms of the policy of LGN.
Oh, hi. Yeah, sorry. I thought it's not my area. I'm in the energy efficiency group, so I am not as familiar with it. I thought they had a policy that was not only on the website, but also within the PSC website somewhere. But I think I can ask someone who should know and figure out where that link is or where those details are. But perhaps I'll send it to Sarah and you could distribute it to the group. But I'll have to check to be sure.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
thank you so
Thank
much.
Sure.
I'll also add that something that we have seen across Kentucky is that a couple of years ago there was a Kentucky Power case. And in this case, during their settlement, they agreed that they would not do disconnections during extreme weather for 17 counties in eastern Kentucky. I believe that this legislation, the past legislation that K4ED and MHC has been working on, is trying to make that a reality for all of Kentucky, for all counties in Kentucky. And so that just provides uniformity. And even if a utility company does have a policy or something along those lines, it's important to have uniformity and to have some kind of legal protection so that, policies can't be changed at any given time. I see it as important of having something across all of Kentucky and to have that backup just in case.
I believe Gary has a question.
Yes, I put it in the chat, but Kara, I was wondering if you would put in our minutes, I guess they're AI recording minutes, the list of warming centers in Louisville with the addresses listed. That would be helpful. And then my idea is that I'll hand out a list every time I see homeless people, and maybe that would help them.
Yeah, MHC has created a flyer for warming centers and cooling centers, so we'd be happy to send that out. Chris?
Thanks, y'all. I just wanted to share that most of the utilities in Kentucky now have energy efficiency incentives and programs. Some of them are designed for folks who have low income and can't install incentives on their own. And I'm posting the links and the phone numbers to inquire further about those in the chat. So call your electric utility and ask for help. Let them know that you need some help and then find out what they have to offer. And if you have any trouble accessing those services, we'd like to hear about it, and we'll try to help you get connected.
Thank you, Chris. MHC also has a page on their EveryHome website, which I will put a link in the chat, that has a list of local resources here in Louisville that provide energy efficiency services, weatherization services, things like that, that can help make your bill lower and save a little bit of that household budget. So if you or anybody that you know needs assistance, this is a great resource to reach out to. We also have a directory booklet. And in this directory booklet, it has a list of housing assistance, homelessness assistance, utility bill assistance, water assistance, all of those things that are located right here in Louisville.
I have a question. So a little little tiny birdie told me that the Metropolitan Housing Coalition will be hosting a conference on housing and utility affordability, and I just really wanted to learn more about that. Can you tell me more information on that?
Yes, great segue. So if you found this information really helpful, the Metropolitan Housing Coalition is hosting an all-day conference here in Louisville at the Muhammad Ali Center on April 7th of this year. We're going to have a lot of really great speakers to talk about some hot topics such as energy disconnections, like we're talking about today. Kara will be a speaker there. Data centers, I know that is a really big topic right now, especially in our community. And we will have catering from Mayan Cafe, which if you all are in Louisville and you've had Mayan Cafe, you know they are amazing. We do have a 10% discount right now if you would like to purchase tickets. But we have a list of 12 or so speakers. Some of them names you may know, like Kent Chandler, who used to be the chair commissioner at the Public Service Commission. And Briante McCorkle, she is out of Georgia, and she is with Georgia Voters, and she has been doing a lot of really great work around data centers and trying to figure out how we balance that with our utilities. So Elena put in the chat the link to our conference, and we hope you all attend it. It's going to have a lot of great information.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask about data centers, but I guess I'll just have to attend the conference.
Yeah, we will have that. We have also done webinars in the past about data centers that I'd be happy to send out that has a lot of good information. And I know there are many people on this call that are working in different groups about the data centers that are the data center coming to Campground Road. But if you do have a question, I'd be happy to answer it.
I had a question on data centers. What is the Metro Housing Corporation position on data centers?
Yeah. So I think for the official, I might tap on Tony since he is our executive director. But we have been trying to figure out a way in which, if they are coming to Kentucky, how can we protect our residents, especially when it comes to energy pricing, air pollution, noise pollution, and water pricing as well. Tony, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
Yeah, I think he did a pretty good job. Our focus is on affordability questions of residential ratepayers as well as safety concerns for residents in residential housing. So that's where our lane is in the conversation.
Are you planning to publish any written position paper on that? Let me just say that I'm involved with with Elisa Owen with Sierra Club and Renewable Energy Association of Louisville and a number of others that were very concerned about this and are concerned that Metro Council is going to pass a bum's rush of allowing data centers in Jefferson County. So we're preparing a position paper on that, and we'll be circulating that. But I'm wondering how many other organizations are concerned about this also.
Yeah, that's a good question, Gary. That would be something I need to take to the board to produce, see if we're going to do an actual position paper on. We are watching the local ordinance closely. I think they're about to release the latest version of it, with that going before the planning committee at the beginning, towards the beginning of February at some point. So we'll see what that actually is, but taking that kind of position paper, that's a MHC board decision. So I'll definitely bring that up and have a conversation about it.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to see if there are other cities and states that have gone ahead with these data centers, what the impact has been, if they've put any protections in place, if we have any, real life examples to point to, or are we're not the first, are we? Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of national conversations going on. It's a hot topic, as you can say. The Kentucky Resources Council produced a model ordinance recently for counties across the state to be able to look at as a reference point. I know they've submitted that to the Office of Planning in this process for developing the local ordinance. So yeah, I was at the U.S. Water Alliance meeting last year, and this was the hot topic there on water affordability issues, among other water issues related to it. So a lot of movement, a lot of public pushback. It's not just Louisville that you're seeing that in.
Right. Thanks, Doug.
I might just say that this was in the Courier Journal on January 18th, a rather large article and a pretty good one also, and I'll reference that in the chat.
And I think it's also important to talk about this as it relates to disconnections as well, right? So if data centers are coming, one of the things that we saw with the 3 cases that are going on at the Public Service Commission right now is that in their LG&E's 15-year plan, they projected about a 40% increase in energy load due to potential data centers coming to town. And to reach that, they wanted to build 2 new gas plants. And of course, with those gas plants, they're wanting to recoup their rates through increasing ratepayer rates. This, of course, is something that MHC has intervened on on behalf of the joint interveners, which is some different organizations that are working on this, represented by the Kentucky Resources Council. But if we are seeing an increase in load and an increase in these energy prices due to data centers, we may well see some increase in disconnections as well. Because as we know, people already cannot afford their energy bills. And if rates keep increasing while income is staying pretty stagnant, then of course we're going to see more disconnections increase. Any other questions?
I think when it comes to the topic of data centers, the problem is that we don't have any good protections on, on the books right now. And there are a lot of projects being proposed without those protections in place. And so we really need our local decision makers and our state decision makers to pump the brakes and put some protections in place. Before we get caught in a situation where utilities have been approved to build lots of new, expensive, billions of dollars in gas plants, and then don't have the customers to pay for that. Don't have the commercial customers, the industrial customers to pay for that, because ultimately utilities will be paid back for those gas plants that are being built. And if the data centers don't come, or there's not good protections in place to protect customers, then we'll be paying for those. For 40 years, we'll be paying for those, locking us into those gas plants that we don't need.
And on that CPCN final ruling with the gas plants, the gas plant was approved. However, recovering costs through raising ratepayer rates was denied. Of course, they could come back in the future and ask for that. But there was also a stipulation in there that if the load were not to materialize, so if the data centers did not come to town, that they would trust that LG&E would not build the gas plants. So there isn't really like a formal handshake on that. It's just kind of like we hope that if the load doesn't materialize, that you won't build it. So time will tell, and I know that is something that MHC will be watching. But if there are no any additional questions, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Kara, for hopping on the call today and presenting on your work on disconnections. Of course, we have given you plenty of links and stuff like that to look at. So I will follow up in a separate email with all of that information, including a link to our past data center presentation. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to respond in that email and we'd be happy to get back to you. But
Sarah,
otherwise,
if it's okay, I'd like to say just one more thing. If we have a minute, I just wanted to let folks know, especially folks who are in direct service and helping people pay their utility bills, LG and EKU bills will be going up this month because of the ongoing rate case that's in front of the Public Service Commission. In state statute, if the Public Service Commission takes longer than 6 months, I believe, to rule in a rate case, the utility is allowed to start charging the new rate while they wait for a ruling from the commission. And so we hit that mark, and now LG and EKU are going to be charging the new higher rate starting this month. And so people are going to be seeing higher bills because of that. They're going to be seeing higher bills because of this wild winter weather that we've been having. And so be prepared for that. LG and EKU will have to refund money if the Public Service Commission makes a ruling on the rate case that is lower than the rate that they've started charging people. But a lot of folks can't afford to be waiting for a refund, right? They already can't afford the rates previously. So I just wanted to give folks a heads up on that, that you are likely going to be seeing more people than usual in the coming month or so. All the more reason to contact your legislator and get disconnection protections passed this session.
yes, thank you. Yeah, I believe that those rates went in effect as of January 1st. I believe in the rate case, this is for the original rates that they were requesting, not the settlement rates. So it's for the full rate increase. And they said that's about an extra $20 a month, depending on how much energy you use. So be sure to watch out for that. And we should be hearing back soon on a ruling on that rate case. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes, thank you all so much. And I will follow up with more information. One more thing, I just wanted to mention that on the fourth Tuesday of every month, we do a webinar like this. We've been doing this webinar series for the past almost 2 years. And we have a lot of different great speakers like Kara come on here to talk about their work and work across the city and state in regards to housing and utility affordability. So we will let you know what our next webinar will be.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.